Good morning, Year 3. Happy Thursday. Another instalment of our English story here. Now, this is the last two plot points that we've got for our story, and hopefully everything will turn out all right for the little boy and his mum. So, this is our first plot point today. Now, finally, after all that travelling and having to sleep rough and sleeping in hostels and things like that, the boy and his mother have finally got themselves somewhere safe to sleep. They've got themselves a little home and a bed, and they might have to share a bed, but actually they don't really mind now. They've finally got somewhere safe to be. So we're going to use this as inspiration for our writing today. So our first initiates, I want you to have a think about all the things that you can notice as the little boy that are better in your new home than they were in the previous house that you had to leave because of the war going on. So pause your video here for me, and in your first plot point today, all the things that are better in your new home. Okay, so I hope you've had a chance to think about some of the things that are better. I'm sure you've got loads, but here are some of the ones that I came up with. So it is warm, you've got running water, you've got a bed to sleep in. It's quiet as well. Remember, we had loads of problems with the bombings and the fires and stuff. And also, it's somewhere safe to sleep. You're not sleeping on the street, you're not sleeping in a room with all of those other people. You actually feel safe. So to mirror that safety that you're feeling, we are also going to try and use a personification today in our writing. Now, we have done this a little bit, but not very much, so it's a really tricky idea. Now, personification is where you give an object human features. So it's something completely different. You're not describing, a chair as a chair. You describe it as something else that it was doing. It's a tricky idea, but I want you to see what you can think about in this picture here that you could use to give human features to make you feel safe. Give it a go for me. When I give you my ideas in a minute, I think that will help as well. So pause the video and try and come up with some human features for an object. In fact, I'll show you my first one. So I've got that the blanket wrapped its arms around me. So a blanket can't actually do that, but that makes you feel safe. So pause the video now and see if you can come up with some other ones for me. Okay, so I also have the bed hugged me. So these are both the ideas. When you feel safe, you feel like you're nice and warm, you feel like you're being hugged and all those things. So I've talked about the blanket doing that and the bed doing that. Maybe the house smiled at you the first time you walked in, something like that. Something that makes you feel happy, makes you feel safe, that objects can't actually do. Okay, let's have a look at our model for today. Soon we had somewhere safe to sleep, a roof to protect our heads, and friends to speak to. I began to unpack that small green rucksack. We were home and worry-free. It was as though a blanket had wrapped its arms around me to give me a warm, safe hug. So I've linked those other things we've talked about earlier on in the story as well. He's still got that small green rucksack and he's actually going to unpack it. He's still got Mr. Orange, all those kind of things. So I've used my noticing sentences. What about this house is better than the previous one? I've talked about the fact that I feel safe, and then I've used my personification of that blanket to give me a nice warm hug to really emphasise how safe I feel. So for this plot point, I would like you to, what do you notice that is better in this house? Try and use your personification. Pause the video and 10-15 minutes for me. Off you go, guys. Okay, let's have a look at our final plot point for our story today. Now, this is our final picture. Now, it's actually one of the first pictures that we see other people's faces of. We've seen them a couple of times, but they've kind of been hidden and they're not looking at any of the boy or his mother. But this time, our boy looks like he has made himself a friend, and that's a really nice way to end our story. So we've got two initiates to focus on again. So for the first one, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to come up with other words for weird. Now, we're describing a person. it's a strange idea, but if you think about the fact that if somebody brand new just came to our school tomorrow, they don't speak the language, they don't understand what's going on, they don't eat the same food that we eat, we probably would think that they're a little bit weird, which isn't the right thing to think, but he's going to say the fact that people think he's weird. So can you come up with a list of other words for weird for me, please? Okay, so I managed to come up with some words such as strange, unusual, or different. And definitely people would be thinking he was different, wouldn't they? That's what we go to straight away. And then, of course, we think he's weird as well, which isn't the right thing to do at all, but it's what people did do to him. Now, the other side, the other way that what we'd like to come up with is make a list of coordinating conjunctions. So these are other words, basically, for but. It's the idea, people think I'm weird, but I know I'm not. So can you come up with a list of other words for but for me, please? Okay, so some of the ones that I have come up with here are things like although and yet. Now, this last sentence is a really short paragraph for us, but it really nicely rounds up the end of the story. Now, I've only written a sentence or so. You can definitely extend this and make it more exciting and more interesting. So I have written, I know I'm different to other people, and some might find me strange. Some people call me refugee, but that is not my name. So the boy is a refugee. So a refugee is the idea that you've had to move from a country to come and find safe passage in another country. That is what makes you a refugee, that you've had to move countries because you were unsafe in your previous one. So that's what he's done. There was a war in his previous country. He's had to walk all that way. We've talked about this. He only could pack a little bit. He's walked, and he's finally found safety somewhere else. So he is a refugee, but that's not what he wants to be known as. He has his own name. He has his own identity. He doesn't want to be known as refugee boy forever. So this is your last sentence. You can build on all of those ideas that we've talked about. I've made it nice and short to give you the option to really extend it and show me how amazing your writing can be. So this is your last plot point. Pause the video here for me. You can spend 10 minutes having a think about how he's different, writing all those other words that people might think about him, but then telling me, it's okay, I'm not a refugee, I do have my own name. Come back to me after you've finished. Okay, so you have finished your story now. Now, the book is called My Name Is Not Refugee, I think. Okay, so you have finished your story now. Now, the book is called My Name Is Not Refugee, if you want to see it at all. Now, the book is actually at school, so unfortunately I can't show you at the moment. But if I can get my hands on it, then I will post a picture of it on Teams as well for you to see. It's a really lovely little book. Now, next lesson, you are going to be starting to plan your own version of the story and then independently writing it next week. So come back to me tomorrow and we'll start planning our story. Have a lovely day, guys.